Welcome to the Middle-Aged Bodcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shelano.
And T.A.
It's Christmas!
Are we going to start singing? Let's do it. Are you hanging all your stockings on the wall? No, wait a minute. We can't
afford the rights from Noddy Holder. So we'll stop that right there before he makes enough money out of Christmas. He can't get money out of us as well, can he?
Well, he probably has somewhere down the line. We've probably bought a copy or two of the song, I'm sure.
Or last Christmas I gave you the Bodcast. You know, it's not too bad, is it? It's not too bad. Where can we end with this?
Well, we're vocally just destroying all these great songs here, which is terrible.
But it leads us into later in the episode, Rich. We are going to be going through yours and mine top 3 favourite Christmas songs, which may or may not involve singing, and certainly won't involve playing anything because we don't have any money to afford to do it, unfortunately. But I'm looking forward to that. But of course, it is Christmas, Rich, and you're sat here in your Christmas jumper.
It's my Darth Vader Christmas jumper.
And you've told me off for not coming in a Christmas jumper, but I didn't get the memo, so that's on you.
Also, I own a lot of Christmas jumpers randomly.
So do I. But you never said that's what we were doing. So
I thought we were going. That's fine.
What can you do?
Communication breakdown.
But it is Christmas, and of course, the main thing of this episode is Die Hard a Christmas film? And Rich has devised a mechanism where we're going to assess this in full detail, and you may even find some extra special guests returning from season 2 to help us out with this one, with the magic of editing. We'll leave that one for later.
Yes, before we get into our top 3 Christmas movies and Christmas songs, we are discussing is Die Hard a Christmas film, and as you've mentioned there, yes, I have put together a document that will help us, and I've also found something today. You're laughing now. Why?
It's like, I've put together a dossier.
I'm not that professional, but you know, I want to go. I thought we've got to try and sell this a bit, because a lot of people put a massive argument up that Die Hard is not a Christmas film. I'm not having that.
Well, okay. So I think for the benefit of us demonstrating some form of integrity here, we're starting from a standing point of saying that we both think that it is a Christmas film.
Yeah.
And the whole point then was to discuss whether or not there's this matrix that you've created to assess it, which, as somebody pointed out, when you already think something, and then you create a matrix that leads you there, it maybe isn't as integral. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use your matrix, I think, for what we need to do here. But we're also going to have to introduce a slightly separate matrix to make this argument, because Bruce Willis, of course, the star of the film, does not think it's a Christmas film and has been very, very vociferous around that. So we will have to also do some counterbalance. But I do love what you've done with your matrix.
We have the matrix and we have the anti-matrix, essentially. We'll have the matrix that says it is a Christmas film and the anti-matrix that says it's not.
Well, it's always, in another way, it would be a democratic debate.
Fair enough. Maybe we should have got someone who doesn't think it's a Christmas film to come on and argue against us.
Well, that would have been an idea, but in the lack of planning that you've now introduced that idea,
I planned the document. That was the whole thing. So we're fine.
I'll tell you what. On that basis, I will go down the route then, even though I am obviously much in support of Die Hard being a Christmas film. For the benefit of this and our lack of planning, I shall be the person who will not so much the naysayer, but I shall also try and bring in some reasons as to why people say that it isn't.
Okay.
Are we happy with that?
I'm happy with that. Right, so let's go with this. This is the Raging Rich criteria for Christmas movies. It's not an exact science, but we'll see how we go. So the first thing to ask is, was it released at Christmas? Now, obviously, Die Hard was not released at Christmas, but I want to put a caveat on this one. Die Hard is obviously an action movie. When are most action movies released? In the summer. Summer blockbusters. So, although the film wasn't released at Christmas, per se, it was harnessing onto the fact of it being an action movie. I'm going to lose this part of the argument, I'm well aware, but that's just something to put out there. The thinking probably in the 80s was, it's an action movie, it's going to do better during that time frame. Also, It's not like now where a film comes out in the summer and you can get it in your home by Christmas. Back then, you probably had to wait probably a year before you had a copy of it.
Well, I suppose the release element is important because if you are a bona fide Christmas film, you're going to come out definitely at Christmas because there'd be no logic in releasing that at a different time of the year. So I get that point there, and your point around action films probably being more the summer blockbuster was definitely a thing. Okay, so on that point then, on your scientific, non-scientific matrix, number one is actually no then, because it was not released at Christmas.
I'll take that, but I would also point out that if Die Hard were to be released today, I think it would be released at Christmas.
Okay.
Because I think you look at Red One, that film that's just come out with The Rock. Yes, it hasn't done very well, but it is also financed by Amazon, and I think Amazon tend to go more for the direct-to-video route. Yes, they've brought it out at the cinema, but you can now view it, of course, on your Amazon devices. Not that we're advertising for Amazon, although if they want to give us some of their money, we won't complain.
They're selling my book.
But, yeah, I think if it were released today, it would definitely be done at Christmas. There's a film actually just gone on Netflix called Carry On. Nothing to do with the Carry On movies, before anyone asks. But that is actually an action movie with Taron Egerton, who was in Rocketman and the Kingsman movies. And he's just done that. And that is an action film that is set at Christmas. So, yeah, the modern stuff seems to be embracing it more. Obviously, back in the 80s, that wouldn't have been the case.
So what you're basically saying is around Christmas films used to be much more the kind of family-friendly, light-hearted, uplifting type scenario of what would be released. Now there's more of an option where actually you can have an action film that's got a Christmas theme, and that in the cold light of day, Die Hard could potentially be released as a Christmas film.
Well, yeah, they just released Violent Night, the David Harbour film, last year or the year before, and that came out at Christmas. It's blatantly not a traditional Christmas film, but it's still a Christmas film. So, yeah.
So, let's get a bit more into your scientific, non-scientific, scientific matrix dossier. What is next on your list, Rich?
So, the next thing is the film set at Christmas? And, of course, we already know the answer to this. Yes, it is.
Well, I think that's an interesting one because you can't really argue with that particular point because it most definitely is set on Christmas Eve.
I mean, there are Christmas films that begin at Thanksgiving. Now, obviously, we don't know, being British, whether that's kind of considered part of the lead up to Christmas. But a lot of Christmas films do indeed start at Thanksgiving and then move into Christmas. Some Christmas films have stuff from the summer in them, I'm sure. So there is an argument to be had with this that potentially the setting can fluctuate throughout the movie. But I think the primary part of the movie has to be set at Christmas, and Die Hard is completely set in that time period.
Well, I suppose you could set a film at Christmas that has absolutely no Christmas reference in it as well.
Yeah.
You could do that, and then that would
Batman Returns.
Completely flip on your matrix.
Batman Returns.
Okay.
Would I call it a Christmas movie? No, but some people would. Now, this is weird because I'm calling Die Hard a Christmas film, but not Batman Returns. I haven't watched Batman Returns for a few years, so I'd have to go back and go through this. But you know what I mean? There's certain things that I think you can fluctuate the criteria slightly.
There is something sort of interesting around this, though, isn't there? Why is it that it's this one particular film that has created so much of an emotion around this? You don't see this with any other film. Have you noticed that? I think that's what we should also be looking at is, why has this become such a thing of this particular film has drawn this attention around? It is or it isn't.
Well, there's an argument that could be made that Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a Christmas film. This is something that's come across, because there is a big part of it that's set at Christmas at one point, but it's not the whole film.
But nobody's asking that for that film or other films.
It's just some people consider it a Christmas film. I think the fact of the matter is it's an action film, and people don't want to call an action film a Christmas movie.
Okay. All right.
So that's, I think, what it is.
Okay. So where would you want to go in terms of your next... I'm going to keep doing this. What's the next point on your dossier, Rich?
Well, the next part of the criteria is, does the film have Christmas music playing during the film and or the end credits. Now, first things first, when John McClane gets into that limo driven by Argyle, he starts playing some music. He puts the music on. Do you know what the song is?
If I've seen this film a lot, Rich, I think it's Run DMC. Is it not?
It is. It's Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC. And that is actually on some Christmas compilation albums now. So, all these naysayers, there is a song featured in Die Hard that is on Christmas albums now. So, it kind of goes along with this criteria.
The listeners will be pleased to know that neither you or I are going to attempt to rap that song.
No. But
or are we? No.
No. Reverend Run and the DMC do not have to worry about us trying to ruin their songs. Don't worry about that. But yeah, essentially, you've got that. You've obviously got songs throughout the film, people singing certain songs. So they're not even traditionally played at times. It might be that somebody starts just singing one, but they are in there. There is Christmas music throughout the movie at different points. That is, yet again, another checkpoint for the movie, and I think something that adds to this criteria in this argument.
Well, the end credits certainly is massively full, obviously, of Christmas music. If you play it all the way through as well, it is very, very Christmassy. Now, obviously, I'm meant to be here arguing for the other side a little bit here, but I think on that particular point, I don't think anybody can deny that the end credits of the film is as Christmassy as you can get. And obviously, at that point, of course, the violence and the action has stopped, which may be the reason why people don't want it to be a Christmas film. But when that's stopped and it's all the credits and it's, everybody that contributes to the film and the music's playing, it is actually, very beautiful to listen to if you like, the Christmas music, and it's a very Christmas spirited thing. So maybe we've hit on a point here, Rich. That the point is the end credits of Die Hard a Christmas film or a Christmas tune? And I think absolutely we've united. We can unite the world on that particular point.
100%.
It's just the rest of the film.
I think so. So that's that part of the criteria. My next piece.
I'm going to have to do it. What's the next bit on your dossier, Rich?
At any point during the movie, does anybody say Merry Christmas?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
It's said a lot.
It's said a lot in the film, and again, these Christmas greetings and the setting and the fact that there's the Christmas party and there's all these references in there. So, a film has Merry Christmas in it multiple times. Yes, I know it's a very short piece of the criteria, but it's still a piece of the criteria that matches other Christmas movies.
I mean, actually, I don't know how many times somebody says Merry Christmas during the film. Christmas is mentioned a lot during the film. I know there's a particular clip where Alan Rickman, who obviously played Hans Gruber, turns around and he quotes the line, Theo, it's Christmas, it's the season of miracles and all that. So there's a lot of references, I would say, where people use the reference to Christmas itself, but perhaps not so much the Merry Christmas.
There is some Merry Christmas uttered in it. I do know that because I noticed that when watching it the other week for my research. But yes, that is a piece of the criteria, and again, a check for the movie.
Okay. So moving on then to your next item on your dossier.
Is there a Christmas tree showing at any point during the film? Yes, there is. Many a time. John McClane walks into the reception and there's a big Christmas tree there. Like there's lots of Christmas imagery. Yes, at the party itself. It's a very professional Christmas party. It's a very upmarket corporate event, so they're not there wearing lots of novelty hats and Christmas jumpers and things that you would, again, get now and maybe not so much at the time of the film coming out. So, actually, you've got to consider when the film was made versus now in terms of the imagery that would be put in there as well.
Now I get an opportunity to do the bit from the people who don't obviously see it as a Christmas film.
Okay.
And that will be that you're absolutely right, Christmas trees are shown during the film. However, arguably the biggest Christmas tree shown in the film is destroyed on Christmas Eve. Now, obviously, if you're in the spirit of Christmas, who would want to see a Christmas tree destroyed on Christmas Eve? So I think you do have to say it's shown, but then it's damaged. And that's obviously not the spirit of Christmas.
It's not, but at least collateral damage.
Easy for you to say.
Well, no, he obviously isn't, because I had to think about it. But collateral damage, it's part of it. If there was no collateral damage, you'd be going, well, hang on a minute. It's like the A-Team. Nobody ever died in the A-Team till like the penultimate episode or the last episode. There's always going to be collateral damage in these films. There has to be. So, yeah, the Christmas tree gets destroyed. But if it wasn't, it might have made it even more unrealistic.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to put
I'm just trying to obviously bring in that alter view that we didn't bring to the table. But, you know, that's it. And what is the final bit on your dossier?
So the final bit of criteria, does anyone wear a Christmas hat or a jumper or any Christmas-themed clothing, which can include, to a level, I think, winter coats and things like that. But that's stretching it. So more Christmas hats and jumpers, I think, is the prime criteria. Now, there is, of course, the scene, now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho. Mm-hmm. I got it the right way around this time, because I know I have mentioned in the past, some people misquote it as ho, 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 now I have a machine gun. It's actually the other way. Bruce Willis obviously puts a Santa hat on the guy. So, yeah, there is...
Well, there's another opportunity for me to come from the alter ego here on this. To murder somebody and then put a Christmas hat on them is not necessarily the spirit of Christmas.
But going back to a previous episode, isn't it ironic, don't you think? And it's done in an ironic sense. John McClane is at this Christmas party that, let's be honest, he probably didn't really want to be at. He's there, he's got to protect Holly and all these people. He's got to have a bit of fun. It's Christmas. He's got to have some fun.
Okay, I think for the benefit of legal reasons here, we have to say that please do not murder people and dress them up in Christmas hats.
No,
please,
in the context of Die Hard.
Yeah, Die Hard. Yeah,
it's a little bit different.
So that brings me to there's things that are obviously missing from the dossier that we could add in here. Some of the reasons that people don't want it to be seen as Christmas is that Die is in the title, which again I think is not synonymous with a pleasant Christmas, so I can get that one. But the other thing is, on the other side of it, we've not talked about, his wife's called Holly.
Yes, and she was renamed for the film, because she's not actually called Holly in the original source material.
Ah, okay. So there you go.
But also, I think with the film, and all the Christmas theming and everything around it, one of the things that... There's no snow, for example, around there, and... people will go, well, there should be snow, there should be romance. There is romance in there. You know, his wife, he has to win her back. They're kind of separated a little bit. They're a bit estranged from each other, but at the end he wins her back. They kiss in the limo or just before they get in the limo. Like, there's all this stuff there. It's happening. It's part of a Christmas tradition there.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that obviously he's trying to steal Holly, if you like, he gets murdered. So that's positive. and he was
an idiot.
And he was murdered by the terrorists.
By Hans Gruber as well. It was not even the group of the terrorists, it was the main guy. It was Hans Gruber.
And I mean, you know, he was actually having a white Christmas in it because he'd been taking drugs.
Of course he was, yes.
It was an interesting...
Interestingly enough, I pointed out when we were watching it the other week, I did point out that in a movie nowadays, you'd probably show more of that. Because the restrictions are a little different to what they were. It's kind of implied that he's done it.
It was very subtle in the film.
Yeah. Whereas now they wouldn't have that subtlety to it, I think. But yeah, it's really interesting. And that character, I mean, I've got to admit, it's obviously horrible to have characters killed by evil terrorists or whatnot in the film. But you do kind of fist pump the air a little bit when he gets taken out. Because he is I'm sorry, podcasters, for the language, but he is an arsehole.
Well, okay. I think there's other things that we need to talk about in terms of the Christmas spirit as well. Is because John McClane is obviously helped by people. So you mentioned Argyle, the limo driver, obviously comes in to help him out. And the probably my favourite character in the film, and this probably cause a few arguments, but my favourite Die Hard character, do you know who it is, Rich?
No.
Would you like to even hazard a
Go
guess?
for it. Well, I don't know now, because it could be such a random...
No. It's Sergeant Al Powell.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's got to be Al, yeah.
Absolutely. That is... He holds the film together in such a way as that side character supporting John McClane. And arguably, apart from the emotion of John being reunited with Holly at the end, the bit where John and Al Powell meet physically for the first time is a beautiful, emotional Christmas moment. So there's a real spirit of Christmas in that, I would argue, as well. Because he keeps John's spirits up through a really difficult time. And then, you know what I mean? So that, and he didn't know him and all the rest of it. So there's also, I mean, from I suppose from the law enforcement side of that as well, there was a brotherhood there. They were from completely opposite police departments from across the USA. But they had a united front as their sort of brothers in that boys in blue type scenario, I suppose, as well. And Anti as the senior police chief as well, which of course probably runs through as most people have issues with their bosses, probably also at Christmas. So there's those kind of things that feed into it as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, one of the things I really enjoyed when I was re-watching the other week as part of my research is Argyle in the limo, not knowing what's going on. He drives into the car park, or the parking lot for our American listeners, and basically, he's there, he's on the phone to his girlfriend, he's playing music, he's drinking from the minibar in the limo. He's completely oblivious to everything until he sees a TV clip of everything that's going on and realises what's happening. He tries to get out, and then obviously he kills the tech... Well, he doesn't kill the tech guy, actually. He rams the limo into his van, doesn't he, as he's trying to get away, and punches him. But yeah.
We probably should have said, if you've never seen Die Hard...
Spoilers!
There's an awful lot of spoilers in this discussion, it has to be said. But there's so many great moments in it, but you're right about him with the tech guy. Of course, like everything, there are things that are not right in a film, and that does create the moment where there's a bit of a mistake, because the tech guy drives an ambulance out of the back of a truck, and unfortunately when the truck had arrived at the beginning of the film, there's no ambulance in it. So that's a sad error.
There's things that we don't see that would have been going on potentially as well. I mean, you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
And of course, Rich, you'd have been too young at the time, so that particular character was the original king of IT. In the 80s, when I suppose tech was first coming out, and Argyle knocks him out for the damage he's done with his IT skills as well. But of course, there is one other point we probably also need to come back to, is that in terms of the terrorists being killed and all these different things, but we lose Mr. Takagi very early in the film.
There indeed.
And in brutal fashion. So of course, there's that issue of that. It's a very brutally violent moment.
But I think you have to have the villains do some damage, because you want to see them lose at the end. If they'd have just rocked up and kidnapped everyone and no one got killed,
yeah, I suppose
you'd kind of be going, well, it's a bit schmaltzy. And I know a lot of Christmas films are schmaltzy, and that's probably part of the criteria we should have applied. But you need that thing. You need to root for the hero. You need to root for John.
But I'm glad you've talked about schmaltz there, because I still think the way the film finishes, it finishes in a very heartfelt way, even though all this carnage has gone on before. So actually that unites it to some degree.
Yeah.
With Christmas films that might be beautiful throughout and very heartfelt throughout, actually it finishes in a very heartfelt way.
Now I'm going to upset you here a little bit, T.A., and I'm sorry, but the guy who's the news reporter, whose name completely eludes me because all I can ever think of is Walter Peck from Ghostbusters, because that's the character he plays in Ghostbusters.
Okay.
But when Holly punches him,
yeah,
of course, you have that moment as well.
Yeah, and I suppose who doesn't punch somebody on Christmas Eve after a few drinks? I mean, there's probably loads of that. Not that that's Christmas spirited, but it does happen. So, Richard Thornburg is the news reporter character in the film, who obviously gets punched, and deservedly so, because he also risks John and Holly's kids in a really horrible way as well. So, yeah, sometimes it's about people getting I suppose, getting their comeuppance. I don't know. It's all these different elements built in, really. But we obviously think it is a Christmas film.
It's always up for debate, isn't it?
It's always up for debate, but there are two types of people in this world. Those who think Die Hard's a Christmas film and those people who are wrong.
So, Bruce Willis, you are wrong.
Sorry, Bruce. And I know it was, your big breakout film and all the rest of it, but how you can't see it as a Christmas film, we just don't understand. For those people who... It's obviously not a family film, so I suppose if we're going to balance this out in one way, it's not a film for all the family, it's very much a film for the adults. So you can't sit around and have everybody watching it, because that wouldn't work. So I understand why it wouldn't be a Christmas film from that point of view, because there is an element that a brilliant Christmas film is for everybody and for all the family. So I think that's a point down on that, potentially. So that could have gone onto your dossier, actually, as a point.
Well, I'll tell you what, T.A. We obviously have the dossier, we have all the criteria. Maybe it's time we go back to those recordings that we made with our guests from this season, because we did actually ask them all, is Die Hard a Christmas film? So, first off, shall we hear from Dan from Casting Views?
I'm laughing because I have this conversation, this argument with a couple of friends so much. In my mind, it's a Christmas film. In my mind, it's a Christmas film. Come at me.
So that was Dan's view on it. He agrees with us.
I suppose we better ask Sarah.
So I've never actually seen Die Hard, so I couldn't possibly answer.
I suppose we better check in then with Mel from the Men Against Mountains movement.
Yeah, absolutely. I watch it every year. Absolutely. I think it is.
Well, Mel had the right answer. I suppose we better ask Amy P.
Oh, this is one of the long-standing arguments, isn't it? And I am going to be so disappointing because, I've never seen it. I'm so sorry. I know that's dreadful, isn't it? That's like saying you've never seen Home Alone. I've never seen it. Home Alone's an absolute classic.
Well, if the title of this episode had been Is Home Alone a Classic, that would have been great, Amy P. But unfortunately, it is Die Hard a Christmas film, and you and Sarah have let us down, but Dan and Mel, they're on board. We better check out what single married Geary think.
100%.
I mean, it is because it's always on TV at Christmas.
So that's 4 people who've agreed with us and 2 people who haven't seen the film. Shame on you, Amy P and Sarah. Watch it this Christmas. There's only one left to speak to. Let's go over to Saffron in America.
Yes. Without even thinking, yes it is. And I'll tell you why. Every film that you watch at Christmas is a Christmas film. I don't care what anyone says, it's whatever your tradition is.
Well, a massive thank you to all our returning guests there. And no, you don't get any residual payments for appearing in an extra episode. Sorry about that.
They didn't get any payments for appearing originally, so, we're doing well.
Well, I had visions that they'd all be sitting there going, I don't remember getting paid for the first one, well, only the second one. But, just to point that out there, all rights reserved by Raging Rich and T.A. Shelano.
Absolutely. Well, we just want to say thank you to all of our previous guests who, when we interviewed them, we obviously asked the question and they have provided the conclusive proof. T.A., can we say it? Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Raging Rich says so.
T.A. Shelano said so.
Dan from Casting Views says so.
Mel from Men Against Mountains, the movement says so.
Tara says so.
Jessica says so.
So single married Geary say so.
And it was brilliantly rounded off there by Saffron also saying, yes, it is a Christmas film.
So sorry, Bruce, we can't all be wrong.
100%. Bruce, I think you need to rewatch your own movie. It is a Christmas film.
Watch it this Christmas.
Please do watch it this Christmas.
Now, normally at this point we'd be thinking, actually, we've covered this and it is our main title. But to stay in the Christmas spirit, Rich has got me working a little bit longer today on this episode, and we're going to do some lists of our top 3 favourite Christmas films and songs. Have you got your list?
Well, T.A., we've done a lot on Die Hard being a Christmas film, so shall we go on to songs first and then go into films afterwards?
Sounds good to me, Rich.
Okay, so top 3? How are we going to do this? Are we going to do both of our 3, then both our 2?
I think so. I think that makes sense. The king of podcasting, Mr. Lineker, I think that's how they do it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go with a bit of a more modern song. I've been hearing it a lot recently. It's been building up momentum, and I do think it's an absolutely brilliant song, brilliantly sang. I'm going with Underneath the Tree by Kelly Clarkson as my third Christmas song.
Oh, that's a very modern choice. I'm afraid my number 3, Rich, is very random, and it was massively inspired by fellow broadcaster Chris Moyles, who many years ago had a campaign to try and get this song to number 1. I've gone with Lou Monte's Dominic the Donkey, which is a very old song, of course. So one modern, one old. We're going to try and sing either of these songs, Rich?
Oh, no.
No, okay.
We can't afford the rights. We've already established this.
They can't sue for that.
Fair enough. Well, number 2. Are we flipping this round? Do you want to do your?
Oh, you want me
first,
to go? You
or?
want me to go? Okay, so number 2 for me is it's got slightly sort of controversial undertones these days, which is a bit of a shame. But it's Fairy Tale of New York with the Pogues and Kirsty MacColl.
Oh, that is a fantastic song. That is a great song. My second song choice is Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade.
Well, we've already mentioned Noddy and that song in this episode, so I suppose it's only fitting.
And, of course, local artists to us.
Yeah, Wolverhampton, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not far. And we won't do any singing on that one again. We've covered that earlier. So, drum roll then for number 1. Okay, back over to you then, Rich, for your number 1 Christmas song of all time.
My number 1 Christmas song of all time. It was mentioned at the top of the show. Last Christmas by Wham.
Oh, what a great choice. What a great choice. Alas, that didn't make it into my final 3, but I do like that song. There's so many good Christmas songs.
Oh, yes, 100%.
But I've gone with a song from a Christmas film, but I won't spoil whether or not that's obviously in our top 3 Christmas films or not. But I have gone with Darlene Love's All Alone on Christmas, which is from Home Alone 2. I really like that Christmas song. It's probably randomly become one of my favourites. So I've gone with that. So sing it, Rich. All alone on Christmas.
Can't afford the rights again. We can't be doing that.
Darlene won't sue me for that. All alone on Christmas.
On that note, I think we should stop the Christmas songs and go into our Christmas films.
And so we're going to go into the films and see where we get to with that. So we shall start, Rich, with what is your 3rd favourite Christmas film of all time?
You know, I've really struggled with this actually because my top 2 are completely locked in, but the 3rd, I had to have a little bit of a think. I actually think I'm going to say Elf as my 3rd favourite Christmas film of all time. I really love that film. It's a little bit more of a modern one again. No, it's not that modern now, but compared to some of the others on the list. But I think it's an absolutely brilliant film. Will Ferrell, hilarious throughout. Yeah, brilliant film.
Well, I wish I'd gone first, because I've got Elf at number 3 as well. So I'm glad we've both got such great taste in that film. And me and Mrs. Shelano have just watched it. And it is a great film to watch every year. It is, I think, 2003, I think. But wonderful performance by Will Ferrell. But I really love James Caan in it, because it is such a diversion from obviously what he was renowned for characters for playing, and I don't think he massively wanted to actually do it. Was not overly happy with Will Ferrell, but great film, great performances, real good, feel-good family Christmas movie.
So, T.A., do you want to tell our listeners your 2nd favourite Christmas film, please?
Yippee-ki-yay! We've been talking about it for the last 38 minutes, I think, or something like that. It's John McClane, barefoot, running round Nakatomi Plaza. My 2nd favourite film, Christmas film, Bruce, is Die Hard.
You know what's really bad? Die Hard hasn't actually made my top 3, which is terrible considering the episode that we've just done.
Well, I mean, keep people in suspense, Rich.
Well, no, I mean, the 2nd film...
What is your 2nd film?
Is actually Christmas with the Cranks, which I've actually only discovered recently. and it's become one that my mom recommended that I watch. So I actually watch it with my parents every Christmas, or most Christmases. So that's a film, I just find it hilarious, where Tim Allen has gone for a Botox injection and he's there just sticking a fork in his face saying he can't feel a thing. Please, if you do have Botox, don't go sticking a fork in your face. But if you've never seen the film, it's the one where Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis, their daughter goes away for Christmas, and so they decide they're going to go on a cruise, and their whole community turns against them. It also has the great bit of Tim Allen arguing about the neighbour, going, who's he going to call? And the neighbour's actually played by Dan Aykroyd, and it's obviously a reference to Ghostbusters.
Well, I'm glad that you went with Christmas with the Cranks and then explained, just in case any of our listeners thought you just said Christmas with the Crankies, who were obviously very popular in times gone by in Britain.
Well, I would say if that film had existed, it would be Fandabby-Dozy.
Oh, what a great reference. But totally inappropriate reference to the Christmas with the Cranks. A film I don't think I've actually seen all the way through, sadly, Rich. So I may have to invest in watching Christmas with the Cranks to see what all this is about. So that brings us then to the number one contenders. Am I going, or is it you?
I think it's me, isn't it?
Is it you?
As I went last on the last one.
So what is your favourite Christmas film then, Rich?
My number one Christmas film of all time is the Richard Attenborough version of Miracle on 34th Street.
That's a nice film.
Absolutely love that film. It's randomly one of these films where when I first saw it the first few times, I'd never seen it all the way through. I'd catch part of it and then miss another part of it. But I have seen it all the way through many a time since. I absolutely love that film. This is obviously the one with Richard Attenborough as Santa. It's got Mara Wilson in there as well. Can I just point out to anyone who's a Mara Wilson fan, this is her best film. I've never seen Matilda. It's better than Mrs. Doubtfire. That's a whole other argument that we'll have at some point, and I'm going to shut up. Go.
Yeah, not relevant to Christmas. But my number one Christmas film, Rich, is, and I genuinely cannot believe this isn't in your top three. I mean, genuinely astonished how this wouldn't be in anybody's top three, actually. Have a word with yourself if it's not just Rich, any of you listening to this. My number one Christmas film of all time is Home Alone. I think that is the ultimate family Christmas film, and I watch it every Christmas Eve, more or less without fail. In fact, as a double, so I go with my favourite film there, Home Alone, and then I close out Christmas Eve, and you know, Mrs. Shelano's just had to put up with this since marrying me. Close out with Die Hard. It is not Christmas until Hans Gruber falls off Nakatomi Plaza. So that is my ritual at Christmas, if you like, and that's why Home Alone and Die Hard are my top two Christmas films, with Elf at number 3.
Well, I will say, Home Alone is in my top 5. It would be the number 4 movie, and it can flip-flop with Elf at times, I'm sure. But, yeah, it's a great film. Absolutely brilliant film.
I mean, I even think, I mentioned, my favourite Christmas song being sort of Darlene Loves All Alone on Christmas from Home Alone 2. As a sequel, I even like that, and I think that would even have a chance of scraping into my top 5 Christmas films. Yeah, probably one of the better sequels, I think, out there as well. But there are so many great Christmas films. And, of course, the message here from the Middle Age Bodcast is that you all have a very Merry Christmas. Listen to all those beautiful songs. Watch all those great films. Enjoy yourselves. And, obviously, overindulgence, which is we're meant to be railing against. Absolutely not at this time of year. You've got to sort of balance it out. Get out for a bit of exercise as well. But definitely partake in, all those enjoyable treats and then feel guilty about it in January.
And to sign off with the song that is in Christmas with the Cranks, Feliz Navidad. We want to wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of our hearts.
Prospero anno y felicidad, as it follows up with, isn't it? Although that's our next episode. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.